Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast with Rico Muhammad and Chuck Snow. I don't believe Rico is going to be joining us tonight, although we're going to try to sneak him in here. Rico is working on another one of his projects that is taking a lot longer. So, with no further ado, I want to invite our esteemed guest. Bruce Outridge, the brilliant creator of Lead Pedal Radio and Lead Pedal Podcast, good friend of the show, personal friend of mine. Bruce, good evening. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast without Rico Muhammad tonight.
Well, I don't know if Rico, thanks for having me. I don't know. I was just watching Rico. He was
Well, he took a minute out. You know, he's been working on some special projects that he's had in trucking. And, sometimes he's busy on Tuesday nights and last minute, customers ask for stuff and he's got to provide it. You know what it's like.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When you're popular like Rico, you got to do what you got to do. So that's
exactly. So how are you doing? We haven't spoken a while. It's time of year. It's truck show season.
And I don't know where you're going to be because you won our special pass to the Woodstock truck show coming up, and that's where we're having our tailgate on Thursday. This Thursday, Chuck. Big announcement. We have reached 10 years on the Lead Pedal podcast. May 22nd, 2015 was the very first episode. So
wow.
Doing a general thing around noon on Thursday, thanking everybody, but thought I'd let you know that's the breaking news right now for sure.
Wow, congratulations. You know what? That's a big deal. It really is.
Yeah, over 1,400 episodes, and I had no idea what I was doing when I started. So we could.
Well, you know what? When I met you, which is probably about 6 years ago or so, you had it together then, I'll tell you.
I don't have it together now, but I keep trying. But having a ton of fun and still enjoying it. Still going to the industry stuff and doing what we're doing. And thank everybody for being part of it. And yourself having us on and all that. I appreciate that.
The industry, it has changed, and some of the people have. We've gotten some new people that aren't really from the industry, but a lot of us weren't from the industry, and we got into it. And I think it just takes some time for people to figure out what this industry can do for them, and that they have to give back a little bit. You can't just take.
I've been at a lot of conferences. I'm sure we'll actually talk about this tonight. I was at a TTSAO, which is the truck training industry conference back in, they were in April this year. They're usually in February, so they're kind of mixing me up. March, we had our Fleet Safety Council, which is I'm part of the Hamilton chapter, and we were talking safety and insurance at that one. And then I just came out of the Transreps National Recruiting and Retention Symposium, all about recruiting. And trust me, the conversations and panels, there's been a lot of opinions, right? And it's not pretty. Everybody recognizes, I think, is stressed and a little fed up as to the way the industry's going. So there's a lot of associations working on it, I guess, which is a good thing.
Yeah, the industry's had I will say this publicly, it did not deserve what it's getting.
No.
Okay, there's no way. This is an industry that has served the public for, I'm going to guess, well over 100 years.
Yeah.
Has served the public's needs, has kept people alive, has kept groceries on shelves, and it has been mistreated by every bloody government agency throughout North America.
Just 5 years ago, they were handing out hot dogs and pizza to everybody that went through the truck stops. The pandemic, we were heroes, and I don't know what happened since then.
Well, lasted all of it. You know what? Seriously, that lasted for a couple. Probably didn't last for 60 or 90 days. We were heroes.
Yeah.
And people treat, and some of it is earned. Some of the treatment we get because of a handful of idiots out there, but it's really. I have driven enough on roads in this continent to tell you that, yeah, truck drivers may be not as good as they used to be, but I have to tell you, car drivers have gotten a whole lot worse. I'm seeing stuff out there that it makes my head shake. It really does.
I walk every morning, and I twice a week I go to the gym up here, and it's a 10-minute walk here, and I'm walking on my side street, and I just cross one light, but there's a school there, and I can tell you in the morning I do not step off the curb without getting eye contact with any driver, and I've had even school buses almost try to run me over. They should know better. It's just everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's just it doesn't help that we've got a school and on this corner and Tim Hortons on this corner, so everybody's just trying to go across into the drive-through, I think. But it's just crazy out there. People, my wife and I have been having this conversation every time we watch the news. People just don't seem to care. The whole pedestrians got right of way. You know, remember the old saying, right? You could be right, you could be dead right. It's coming.
Yeah. You know, we go downtown once in a while because my wife and I have a piece of property there. And I've been driving since I was a little boy, way before I had a driver's license. Driving downtown, I learned how to drive straight trucks in downtown Toronto as a little boy in public school. And I have to tell you, I had to relearn how to drive in the city of Toronto because you're making a right-hand turn, you're on a green light, and people try to ride their bicycles or walk through your front fender. I'm not joking. Like, it's insane. Like, where are you going? You know, it's just, and I realize that people are under stress, but for people to drive the way they do and act the way they do, this is crazy. I can't figure this out. We had an incident on the weekend. Now, I was away this weekend, but I heard about it as soon as I got home last night, where a 19-year-old kid, and he is a kid at 19, even though he's going to get tried as an adult, and he deserves to be tried as an adult. He killed 3 children because he was drunk. And you know, like, come on. Like, this is an old thing. Drinking and driving is not new, but it should be. You know, people should have learned already.
Yeah, no, that's the sad one. I just saw that on the news too. But the truck accidents, you know, I was like you, right? We used to defend the truck drivers, and it's probably the car driver's fault. I gotta tell you, I'm not so sure anymore. I'm seeing it every day on the news. There was a big fire out by, I think out in the East End there. I saw just before I came on too, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, we're supposed to be the professional drivers, and we're not. And I'm hearing some stories that just everybody's just shaking their head. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I'm going to defend. I'm going to defend the truck drivers. Yeah, trucks catch on fire, and trucks are a whole lot safer now than they were when I started driving them. Probably you weren't even born yet.
I might have been born when you were 10. So
okay, I'll give you that one. No, I don't think you were. Anyways, but. I'm sorry, but I think that it's gotten that much harder to drive a truck because of the congestion, the rules, all of it, you know, and especially the congestion and the fact that shippers and receivers don't give a damn.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, that's the other thing. They're keeping people. This isn't new, but it's gotten worse where some of these places will keep a driver for 6-7 hours for half a dozen skids.
Yeah. But that's been going on since I've spent 8 hours loading. In Alabama, they load the furniture. They make the desk. They load it. They make the chair. They load it. Trust me, it's an 8-hour process there. So, I mean, that happens all over. But I think I'm not sure trucking is harder. It is harder as far as congestion and all that stuff. But boy, the technology, and Mike just wrote I'm going to get Mike. He was on your show. Mike I can get his last name.
Oh, yes, Mike. I think he's watching right now. The old school trucking.
Hey, Mike, how you doing, buddy? Mike put a post out this morning about technology, and I thought it was very good. And he was saying kind of the same thing, that technology is making the older groups get out. And I'm not sure they might be trying to grasp it a little harder, but the skills we learned before technology, we're still using today. And this was my take on Mike's article, is that, you know what? If you remember New Jersey, on the turnpike at 4 o'clock, afternoon trying to find a phone booth to call dispatch because
Good
we had to call between 4 and 6, and so we trying to find that. If I had a cell phone, boy, life would. And how many coins did we have to?
Oh my God, are you kidding? I used to weigh 300 pounds from all the coins I carried with me.
How many coins did you throw out going through the toll booth that didn't hit the cage? And you had to throw the coins in Jersey there, and you're hoping it doesn't go into the field.
You know what? You're 100% right. The technology, and there were a group of us talking at Matt's, and we're talking about the good old days, about how we could get from, in my case, from Ontario to California or Florida or Jersey or even New York City without a map, or with a map, no GPS, and the directions written either in a little book the driver recited to you. This is how you get in there, or on the back of a cigarette package from a guy at a gasoline station. And then
I had a little black book, but I was one of the first to go to the Palm Pilot. I don't know if you guys remember. Palm Pilot was like,
I do remember them. Yes.
It was like a calculator, but back then it was basically just a calculator that would store. You could store phone numbers and stuff. That thing, man, was a godsend to me because I was able to, if I had a broker's name, and I still do this today, you get Carol on the phone when you're shipping your document, when you're, faxing your documents or whatever. Trust me, Carol's name went in my book. So when I called, Peacebrook or whoever it was, I go, hey, is Carol there? Like if I knew her, so I get help. This is old school techniques.
Yeah, it was great. Those were wonderful, and that was probably one of the first bits of technology that was available to us was the Palm Pilot. Now, around the same time, the cell phone did come in, but I remember two drivers of mine, and they both had got cell phones at the same time, and this would have been, my God, man, about 37 years ago. That's how long ago it was. And both of them, the first month they had them, rang up $5,000 bills. Because one of them was talking to his girlfriend all the way from Toronto to Arkansas. Well, I think that probably ate up about 3,500 of the $5,000. And then they come to me wanting to get reimbursed. And I go, guys, come on. Like, you know what? If it was $50 maybe, but $5,000, there's no way. You haven't done that much work.
That's the problem with a cell phone is we used to have them in the trucks, and we'd call all the other drivers, and it's easy to start a conversation in Ottawa and end it in Brockville.
Yeah. Most things happen. But I think that as great as technology is, and I'm not going to sit here and bash it, I'd be an idiot, because there's some great technology out there, but I think a lot of it is distracting. And forget about I'm not just talking about the idiots out there that watch movies, because I think anybody that does that should actually lose you should lose your CDL or AZ or Class 1, whatever the jurisdiction is, and never given one again, because it's only a matter of time. If you're doing things like that, you're going to kill somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. But the other distractions, okay, you've got more buzzers and bells and warnings and everything else. Think back to the first truck you ever drove. It had a tach, it had a speed limiter, speedometer, it had a air pressure gauge, and and maybe a pyrometer, maybe, okay, and oil pressure and temperature. That was it,
Is a TAC card. The trucks I worked, I wasn't at the TAC, because that was only the union guys. The big carriers had the TAC cards. I didn't have a TAC card, so I didn't have to worry about that whole paper trail.
Yeah, you know what? We bought a couple of Kenworths, I remember back in 1981, and my business partner at the time put tachometers in them. And I said, what are you wasting our money for with this? And you know what? He reprimanded the drivers a couple of times for doing something dumb. And he left, not the drivers. The drivers are still with me. And as far as I know, they're both still driving today. They were good drivers. But yeah, I think that some of the technology is great, but some of it is very distracting.
Well, I was. This isn't related to trucking, but it kind of is. You probably saw the news industry the other day with the boat that hit the bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Thinking to myself, all right, so I understand New York, where they mark a foot, but boy, he didn't just take off an inch of the mast. He took off like, 4 foot of the top there. Someone did not measure. And I'm thinking, how many times has that boat probably gone under that bridge? You did not know that was not high enough. Like,
Well, they would have access. Okay, that's a big size boat. They would have access to data telling them where there's low bridges. Okay, so there's something not right somewhere. Yeah.
As I said that should go on like I know there's a website that is called 8'11" or something, like, which shows all the trucks under bridges. I said, oh, that's a boat version for that.
Bruce, I have a theory though. Those things there, like that website, that is destroying the fabric of our industry. I really believe. I think that I've said it on this show before, and I will go to my, to my dying day. I believe this, that we should not bring the shaming into the public forum.
Right.
I also believe that when you see somebody doing something really bad, you should report it. Yep. Okay, whether you report it to their company or to the law. You see a guy, as far as I'm concerned, if I see somebody that's watching a movie while they're driving a truck, I will report them.
Yeah.
Because that guy is going to either kill me or somebody in my family or one of my friends.
Yeah, no, I don't see the problem I have is there's so much technology. How come that technology doesn't know when, if the car's in gear, it shuts down any screens? Like, I don't understand how you're still able to go down and do that. I think it does it with e-logs. I don't know. I stopped driving before e-logs, but I think that it goes dark and it only displays what your hours or whatever it is.
Well, because there's workarounds, right? And you just say, well, I'm guessing. I'm not big for videos in cars to start with. I tell my grandkids all the time, they're always saying, well, they call me Zappy, and they go, how come you don't have TVs in your car? And I go, if I had TVs in my car, they'd be taken out. Cars are not for watching TV. Cars are for talking and learning and playing games, not for watching TV. You watch TV in your living room.
Yeah, I'm not that talented. I can't thing and driving this. I cannot text. I have to police myself because I am not. First of all, I don't believe in if I'm in the local area, for sure I don't answer the phone at all. Like, I don't. But I don't understand. Like, I'm not able to text. I don't know how someone can go down the road driving and texting. I'm not that talented. Like, my mind will not allow me to do both of those at the same time. I don't know.
Not if you're driving safely. No, because they say, and I have every reason, to believe them, that if you are texting and driving, it is worse than drinking a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, I know.
Because you're impaired.
No, I got pulled over the other night. Here's a good story for you. I did a DJ event at the Holiday Inn, which is exactly 2 exits, 5 minutes from my house. I'm leaving there, no drinks, no, nothing.
Yeah.
Follow the truck off the ramp, tractor trailer. He was going, so I wasn't speeding. I caught the light. I just turned left on the Wardown Road and I get pulled over. And I'm like, what the heck? So I just sit there and wait. And the cop comes. He says, your light's not on. So my pickup truck, when I was working on my generator in the back the other day, and I've been doing it for some reason. When my tailgate's open, it leaves the lights on if your lights are low. So I've run down my battery a couple times. So when I was doing that work, I turned my lights off, but I usually leave them on auto. I forgot to. So I went into the Holiday Inn at 4 p.m, didn't need lights. I came out, thought I had lights, and I felt like being a smart butt to the guy and saying, well, I got enough decals on my truck. You can probably see them at night. But I thought,
hey, good thing you didn't.
We're on road check week. That's probably not the right attitude. So
yeah, no. You know what? You never know when you're going to catch one of them in a bad mood. I got pulled over one night. My wife and I were having dinner with friends in Mississauga, and they were late. They had been detained with a traffic jam, and it was a Japanese restaurant, and I ordered the smallest thing of sake, a Japanese rice, I guess a rice wine. And it's probably it's probably about 5 ounces, maybe smaller, 4 ounces. And that was at 7 o'clock that I ordered it. And we left, it was almost 11. And my wife and I are going up Cawthra Road. And all of a sudden I see lights. I go, oh, somebody's getting pulled over. And my wife said, "You're getting pulled over." So she pulled me over and came to the car. Nice, young cop. And I said, "Yes, can I help you?" He said, "Driver's license and insurance." I said, "Can I just ask why you're stopping me?" And he said, "Yes, you left a licensed establishment that's licensed to sell alcohol. And we have been instructed, if we can, anybody leaving a licensed establishment, to check them out. Did you have them to drink?" And I said, "Yeah, I had a sake at 7 o'clock, a small sake." So he kept me for about 10 minutes, went through my license and insurance and everything, comes back and says, "Can you get out of the car?" I get out of the car, and he read me my rights and made me do a breathalyzer. Now, I ended up breathing zero, but still, that's the sort of trouble you can get into if you did have a couple of beers. You can end up having to take a taxi home and lose your license for 24 hours.
I've been on the non-alcoholic beer for a long time now, and I'm happy with that, because at least there's not, as long as 0 times 0 still equals 0, we're good. Yeah, you gotta watch, and they could pull you over for any reason, eh? I mean, that's what they changed about a year ago. They weren't enforcing it. I think that was in before, but now, and like you were saying earlier, it's the people driving. Someone hits you, even if you're, you had one beer and you're able to get home fine. Someone hits you, and now you are having to do breathalyzer and all that stuff that goes with it. So yeah, it's not worth it anymore. It's and
Yeah.
I mean, we've all got stories from the old days.
What? I was really good about that. I had waited for my driver's license from the time I was 2 till I was 16 to get it.
Right.
So by the time I got it, which was 3 days after my 16th birthday, I got my chauffeur's license. I was not losing that thing. Bruce, I could probably buy another house for what I spent on taxis as a young man.
Oh, wow.
But I never, I spent a lot of money on taxis, but I didn't drink and drive.
Right.
I just, that was just the thing. And I think it probably saved my life and a lot of other people's.
Yeah. I'm, it's funny because of all the education and stuff and the technology and all of that. And we're going the wrong way. We're going the wrong way in so many different ways. Drinking and driving and the way people are driving. And we should have that figured out by now. It was, who was on? I had somebody on a show who was an ex-MTO officer. And he says, when I got into the industry, breaks out of adjustment were the big issue. He said, here I am 30, 40 years back, he's now kind of gone out the other side of the industry. And he says, that's still the big issue. Like all the stuff that's the basics, we can't seem to get it as humans. I don't understand why, but we seem to have
Bruce, maybe I shouldn't say this on the air, but I'll say it. I couldn't tell you how many guys, and these were good drivers. They were owner operators that I road tested. And before I started a road test, my first question is, we're going to do a circle check. And rather than embarrass somebody, waste my time, waste their time, do you know how to check brakes? These were owner operators mostly. Okay. And I would say 80% said no. 80. And if I hired them, they got a brake course in our shop from a mechanic, how to check brakes. And I made it clear why they needed to check brakes. Because if something happened, we had insurance. The insurance would cover us. But if they said they checked the brakes and they didn't, and they killed somebody, they killed somebody. And there's no insurance policy on the face of this earth that is going to protect them against a lawsuit.
Yeah. I learned to do that early. I mean, I started driving it was probably 1980. I got my license, 81, and I went right to being an owner operator right away. So, but I found a lot of the companies I worked for, I had my own truck and trailer. Not personally, I was still a driver, but they dedicated a piece of equipment to me.
Right.
So I guess they must have taught me. I don't remember where I learned it because I didn't go to a trucking school when I started driving. I learned off.
Yeah, no, there. You know what? If I'm not mistaken, there were only a couple of Merv or I don't even know if Merv or had opened yet up here.
Yeah.
And there was Humber College and there was George Brown College, which I'll say it now is not a very good school. A friend of mine got his license in there and I had never taken the course and I knew more about it than he did.
Yeah, I didn't. I had a very good friend. We worked at the moving company together. He's the one who taught me how to drive tractor trailer. He had been driving there a couple of years. His dad was an owner operator for the same moving company, and he's the one who taught me to drive. And he would take loads for his dad to the States. That was my introduction to going to the States. I would go with him, and he would let me, and we'd unload the trailer, and we went partnership. That's how we bought a truck. And I don't know whether he taught me. Maybe he did. I don't remember where I learned it. But when I look back at my career, for most times I pulled the same trailer all the time for a lot of. I never worked for big companies. I worked for a lot of small family-owned companies. So
right.
Everybody had their trailer, and that's it. There's no extras, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so different. You know what? The bed bug industry, and we should have somebody on one night just to talk about that because it's a fascinating industry. But that is so different than any other part of the transportation industry. That's just got its own thing. The way you load a load, and you could be 2 days loading some of those big mammoth loads out of those mansions in Toronto. That's an art form. I've watched them do it, and we did years ago at Traffics. We did some household moves for moving companies, right, where they would provide the labor, and we just provided the truck and trailer. And we had one customer who was a moving agency, and we had them for, my God, about close to 40 years. They were an account of ours.
That's how I got into the trucking industry. And I think probably 8 to 10 years I was in that industry. So I started at 17 humping furniture, didn't have a license. I had a car license. That was it. And then got my D license, and I worked with my D license for a couple of years. I started with an Atlas agent, went over to a North American agent. And when you're the driver, you're the king, you're the boss of the truck, whether you know anything or not, you're the boss. Yeah. So I was in charge of a team, and then they only had one tractor trailer, an old gas job GMC. That's what I got my license on, as a little single axle. And they were sending me out before I had because the guy was sick, and they go, Bruce, we got you. I'm going, I don't even have my license, guys. But they allowed me to back up into the docks on weekend and stuff. And I learned, and I finally said, I better get this before we go. And it was, I felt I had good training. And it's funny because I wish I could see my friend Andre that taught me. Once we split ways, I have not seen him for like 35 plus years.
Wow.
And I would love to say just say thank you. He married a nurse, moved to, I think, Brownsville, Texas, or Brownsville, Georgia, or somewhere down south at the time. And I've never seen him again. So I don't even know if he's incognito or if he's still alive. He's a few years older than me, but really nice guy. And I would love to see him today, just say thank you. Cause I've had a 40-year career because of him, because of somebody that took their time back in the day.
It's funny. It's those giants who let us ride on their shoulders that get us here.
Yeah, he was really good, and he would tell me stuff like, that speed limit on the curve is not for you. That's for the cars. You're a truck. You've got to be slower. I remember my first trip to Iowa, Bluegrass, Iowa. One stop.
I know what that is.
Holy smokes, man! Middle of February, I think we got there. I'd never been to a place so cold, so dark. So
yeah, it's wide open, so the wind just cuts like all through there. The wind just cuts, and hauling furniture in the winter, you get that crosswind. Now, with a load, like the heaviest load of furniture I ever saw in my entire life was about almost 30,000 pounds, because they had a lot of books. You can't get any heavier than that. Now, I remember running on 80, and it wasn't even in the winter, and we had a real good crosswind, and it was, when you're in, I think it's in Wyoming, and you get the crosswind, but you're protected because there's a mountain kind of blocking it, and then you get out in the open, and I'll never forget this bedbug hauler behind me. Sure enough, single axle tractor, and he had more weight than I did because I had a light load. I remember him, he was on the radio. Mister, you think we're going to make it? You think we're going to make it? Because that crosswind was hitting, it was hitting both of us pretty good.
Oh, some of the story, that's why when I talk in a school or something, and people are going, well, geez, what if I have to work, an extra day? And I go, stop whining. I go, my first experience at the border, 6 hours. They tore our trailer apart. We had to put it back in together. 6 hours at customs at 2 a.m. My very first experience ever crossing the border. Went to New York City. I got the truck stuck under a bridge. There you go, guys. Back in the day when no air ride, we had to take the air out of the tires to get it under, but
yeah, that's part of, but people today, there's a lot of choices out there, or there has been, where they can get other employment for, probably maybe similar money on construction and things like that. So they have alternatives where we really didn't, we didn't, and plus we had the passion that drove us. And I really do believe that the passion has been legislated out of everybody.
Oh yeah. And I tell people, the bed bugging industry, the moving industry, teaches you a lot more than trucking. That is still true today. Dealing with customers, dealing with the public, dealing with, freight and, all kinds of stuff that we had to deal with back in the day, and laying over, today I had to take my wife to an eye appointment, and she hates waiting. She's like, oh man, I hate waiting. She's waiting 5 minutes, and she's like, oh, wait, I hate waiting. And
you would be a very good truck driver.
And I'm going, calm down. I go, I can wait for hours. I never had a problem waiting, because in the trucking industry, that's all we do. And if you're hauling furniture, sometimes you're waiting for days. Like, it's not unusual. When we started running Florida, we used to go down to Florida, and we were so green that we didn't know the tricks of the trade. So we would go down and we would spend 2-3 days waiting for a load. You're not getting anybody out of Florida, especially in the middle of February, not going back to Canada. So we would wait down there, and then finally we go. But my friend's dad had it figured out. He used to run there all the time. He says, I wait 24 hours, and then I start coming back. And you keep coming back, and hopefully you pick something up in South Carolina or wherever, and you keep coming. And if not, they are paid on percentage. You've got to know your numbers, so you know that if you come back empty, you've made it even on the trip. If you can get a load now, you've made profit, because usually your trip down is what pays for a round.
Yeah,
and you just got to. So, but
that's the big thing, though. You just said a mouthful. You've got to know your numbers, and this is where a lot of people get into trouble in the truck industry. It is so easy to get yourself into the worst jam possible because you don't know your numbers, because it's pretty fatal if you don't know your numbers, and it's costing you more money to operate than what you're making. You're not going to last.
Yeah, no, it's crazy out there, and any business. I mean, you've been in business. I'm in business. It doesn't matter what the business. To be honest with you, if you don't know your numbers, you're not.
But you know what? Trucking's funny because you don't. A lot of these guys, and I saw a case 2 weeks ago, and I was hoping to get the guy on this show so that Rico and I could just go over his numbers. Here was a fellow. He used somebody else's account. It was a truck. And if I remember the name of the company, if anyone wants to see the post, it was called David Equipment or Equipment David. If it was Equipment David, it would be a Hispanic owned company. Maybe they're down in Mexico, maybe even South Texas. And there was a gentleman on there who was, I'm going to guess he was between 50 and 60, and tales of woe. He had lost, he had just given up, and he had to, he basically had to give up his truck and lose it to the finance company. And, and he had borrowed money to keep operating. And I would have loved to have him on this show so we could see, for our listeners' benefit, and maybe for his too, where he went wrong. Yeah. You have to, the problem is when people don't know their numbers, there's all sorts of hidden costs with this business. Okay. And one of the biggest ones is your maintenance. That's a hidden cost, because you can go out and buy a brand new truck 2025, or maybe the 26 is already out, and you've got a warranty for 800,000 kilometers or 500,000 miles. And if you're not putting money away to pay for repairs, the repairs you're going to need, and you're going to need an engine after so many miles. You're going to, these trucks don't last 3 million miles anymore. These engines, none of them last that long. They just don't have that big a long a lifespan. So, you can just imagine what happened to this guy. And he was earning less per mile than what it was costing him to run. And that's why, because some of these things, your tires, your brakes, your maintenance in general, forget about the other stuff, but those are the things that if you don't put money away and accrue money, those are going to cost you. You better have money for new tires, and certain jobs you do. I had a guest on about 3-4 weeks ago, and they haul entertainment stuff for rock and roll groups and for theaters and stuff like that. And of course, in a job like that, the equipment's got to be fairly new, and you wouldn't dare run the risk of running recaps, which I did for the last 25 years, very successfully for what we did. But we weren't hauling for a rock and roll band that was going to sell out to 60 or 100,000 people at some stadium.
Can you imagine? You're the one who's breaking down.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I guess I'm giving away my age because somebody will probably Google it out there. But I remember when the Rolling Stones had played in Toronto in about 1974 or 75, and they were not far from where you live, right by the Burlington Skyway. There's that bend in the road where before you go on the bridge. And one of the trucks from the Rolling Stones flopped one over. It happens.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Rolling Stones because I'm right in the middle of reading Keith Richards' biography. I tell you, based on the biography, and I'm almost about 3/4 of the way through this giant book, it's not the truck drivers that are late. On so many drugs, it's got to be hilarious to read this thing. He's more of like a pharmaceutical guy. I cannot even pronounce half of the names I'm reading. I'm going, I don't even know what that is, but apparently it's some type of cocaine.
The funny part is the man lived through it. That's what I don't understand.
Saying in the book, he was voted best top guy to die in like the next 10 years. I don't know when that was, but somebody put out and said next 10 years, Keith Richards number one. He's going to be gone. He's outlived all of those. Him and Willie are going to be around.
Yeah. Maybe we need to take a page out of their book. I don't know, Bruce.
Cars so many times, and he's been in jail, so he's almost not allowed in every other. I don't even know how they tour because he's got like bands.
Well, I think those guys get a special pass that you and I and the rest of the world probably wouldn't, because they're worth a lot of money, and they certainly those acts bring a lot of money into a town.
Oh, big time. Well, Taylor Swift's a primary. I did an interview with Upstaging, and they're a U.S. carrier that does all the.
Yes, I know them quite well.
I know there's a Canadian equivalent. I think it's called Stagecoach or something like that. And there might be others. I don't know too many of the names, but it was really an informative. But you have to be willing to be on the road for like 6 months. I don't even think half the drivers getting into the industry could handle that, because they're saying they will take you off if you need to for family reasons. But
because that happens. Somebody passes away or whatever, that does happen. But you've got to be committed. And you don't. When I started driving, I would meet people that were on the road. That's what they did. I remember meeting up with a young couple in it was in Manitoba or Saskatchewan somewhere, and they worked for United. A young couple. They were husband and wife, newly married, and they were on the road full time. That's what they did. They were real happy.
Yeah. No. It's great. I mean, and I don't know, there's a couple of videos I saw of where they've got it back in. I know I've been underneath some of the places here in Toronto with our trailers, and because when I hauled chemical, we went to the boiler rooms. We never went to docks, so I went to a lot of the same places these guys would have gone to do And some of these places, it's interesting. You cannot be the new guy backing up. Like, it's very tight, especially if you're coming in with 53 footers and that kind of thing. And of course you've got nice trucks. It's like the race guys. You don't want to be the one that bangs up.
Oh, no, not if you want to live and you want a job the next day. So I learned something about this. If you're delivering to one of these shows, what you do is you do not look at your mirror. That's number one. You are not allowed to look in your mirrors.
Okay.
And you are given directions by somebody else over
Wow.
a radio, like a VHF radio. And they go, okay, a little bit to your right, a little bit to your left. Now straighten out. You do not and it's like pulling a set of doubles. You do not look at your mirror.
Wow. Well, I've been to the paddocks down at Indy, Honda Indy down here, and they're parked so close. You can their bill in between those, and it's because they actually walk through the trailers. They have setups for the doors where they can go from one trailer to another without going out the back. I guess
saves a lot of time.
I guess there's a car there or something. I don't know, but that's so it's. To be able to get it in that tight, like, holy smokes, we got guys who cannot get it in, an open dock. So I think that's a skill level that needs to be promoted more to show people, here's what you need to do.
Yes. You know what? There's a whole bunch of skill levels I think the first skill level that drivers need to learn is how to deal with people.
Yes.
That's number one. How to present yourself at the shipper so you don't look like an idiot. That's number one. So maybe you do get treated with a little bit more respect.
Don't get me started.
Well, I want to get you started because that's what this show is all about.
We went today. We had to do a bunch of errands, and I'm not good. My wife and I are not good shopping together. But we had to go. We had an appointment. So anyway, I had to go to a bunch of different stores.
Right.
And I have very little patience for non-customer service.
I get it.
And you know what? I try to shop local. I try to, all that stuff. But boy, the stores that I've been going into for 10 years, some of them I'm not going in anymore. Like, they just saw me for the last time. The people don't even, it's almost like they don't want you in the store. You know why Jeff Bezos is so rich?
Yes. Because people don't want to, you know what? People don't want to go into stores. We were in Vancouver. When was it? Last month I was skiing and out in Calgary or in Lake Louise, and I went out to Vancouver for a couple of days. And I went into the Bay in downtown Vancouver, which I've been in before, a beautiful store. And I did a video on it, but I didn't have the heart to post it because it was too negative.
Right.
And it was sad, it was like watching somebody's fallen kingdom, and empty shelves and floors closed and, the elevators barricaded. And, the department store industry, there's 9,000 Canadians right there. Forget about what's going on with the automotive industry with the tariffs, but there's 9,000 Canadians out of work.
Yeah.
And some of them, I'm sure, were very good salespeople in certain departments in those department stores that maybe will never get another job in retail.
Well, there's the chain that I won't say their name, but there's a chain that I buy my camera equipment and stuff from, and I've been going there for years. And I can remember before the pandemic, the guys that worked there were photographers. You could ask them about a lens or about something, and they would do their best to help you or say, "Here's what I tried." I went to that same store today. The stock is almost gone. They look like they're about to go out of business. The people no, hey, do you need something else for that? I was buying paper. Can you if I'm buying paper, you probably think I might need ink. Hey, do you need ink with that? None of that, right? Amazon does. Oh, here's a product that people bought but they're not doing that in stores. We were told to go to a self checkout when there was a girl there. One person in line said, "Oh, you can go over there." Well, I would have waited for you, but so when they're doing that kind of stuff, that's not encouraging me to go back. There's there's
nothing,
There's a security guard there that I've never seen before inside the door. I don't know if they've had problems there, but I've never seen him, and I've been going to the same store for 10 years, and I'm like, okay, I don't feel comfortable here anymore. Like,
well, you know what? Unfortunately, the security guard is there because, so I understand, in Canada, shoplifting is insane.
Yeah.
It's gotten just like the States. Your average Canadian Tire store, and for our American listeners, Canadian Tire is kind of like, it started out as an automotive store selling tires, but now they sell everything from garden stuff to kind of like a TSC store on steroids that's got a much broader assortment. They sell fishing gear and some hunting gear and some camping gear and some, hockey, and but they're all franchises. And apparently the single stores, which are all privately owned for the most part, they lose millions. They call it shrinkage in shoplifting.
Wow. Yeah, I
And
believe.
that's why if you go into a Canadian Tire now, you will see more and more things being locked up.
Okay. Okay. They just bought the base, so I don't think they're losing too much money. They just bought lots of space.
Well, no, corporate does very well. It's not their shrinkage. It belongs to their franchisees.
Hey, leave that alone. I can see right now there's comments going in, and that's not going.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, to our listeners, thank you for joining us. Would you please, we're trying to get our algorithms up. Press like on any of the social media platforms you're watching this on. We really want to get more and more people aware of this show. Rico and I have been working at it for many years, and we keep trying to do different things to make it better. So, and if you have any suggestions for us, please let us know.
Yeah, you should have on the show, and I don't know if you know him. You know Jamie Hagan? He's Hellbent Express. I know him off. I've had him on the show before. I think he owns 3 or 4 trucks, and he's still he's one of those guys you see putting up on X. He'll put his fuel mileage. He runs max. He's getting like 9, 10. I think he was in.
Yeah, they're getting incredible fuel mileage. Now, I was speaking of max. I believed, along with a lot of other people, that it wouldn't be long before Volvo just took the old dog behind the barn and shot it. But fortunately for us Mac lovers, nothing is further from the truth. The people over in Sweden at Volvo realized that they have bought this iconic brand, and they are working to improve things. And they've certainly taken some of the best parts out of the Volvos. And I think the best thing about a Volvo, other than the ride, they're nice riding trucks, but their automatic transmission is second to none.
I think a Volvo the other day have they gotten higher, the Volvos? Are they like a taller? I don't know if this was an EV truck. It had a weird, and I was driving, so I didn't pay as much attention to it but the front of it looked really, it looked like a Volvo, but looked like a Volvo on steroids, like you just said. It was really weird. It was almost like something out of the future. I didn't know if it was an EV truck that I maybe hadn't seen, or I don't know if they're around, these Volvos, but it looks very, I don't know if this must be some new version or something.
I don't know. You know what? I'm I'm just not a Volvo fan, although I appreciate the ride. We had some, and they're wonderful riding trucks. And the ones we had, in all fairness to Volvo, it was not totally their fault, because we didn't have them set up properly, and we should have put in a better system, which we didn't have any system. So the guys were letting them idle, okay? And they don't like to idle. And there was all sorts of other problems because we were running them. They were domiciled. We had a facility in Calgary, and they were domiciled out there. And you get that 40 below zero weather in Alberta and Montana, and you've got to let the truck idle if you don't have some sort of a system on there. And the trucks, because we were letting them idle, were giving us nothing but problems. And then to top that off, the parts were hard to get, but everybody's parts were hard to get at the time. This goes back to 2014, around then, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And we had nothing but problems. We couldn't get service. Everybody out there was having problems getting service. The oil patch was stealing anybody that was available for working on equipment up there. So you couldn't get mechanics, you couldn't get drivers. It was a tough time. But the one common denominator, every driver ever drove a Volvo said, there's nothing as comfortable. You could drive that truck. If you were allowed to, you could drive it for 24 hours straight and you wouldn't get beat up. It was, they're ergonomically brilliant.
I had a couple of the very first models when they came out, and I enjoyed them, but never got back. I want to, and I think I don't know if you did this on a show. I've been meaning to ask you. I want to come to your shop. We're going to do the whole Mac thing, but I want to know about Australia or was it Australia or New Zealand? You went
Australia twice. The first time I went with my wife, and I didn't get to do too many trucking things, but the second time I met Dean Croak over there,
right.
the Grumpy Pete. And oh my God, the guy is a rock star. There's no two doubts about it. What a strong, wonderful trucking culture. It's unbelievable. People drive there like they used to here when I got my driver's license. They use their signals. They don't drive like demons. Nobody speeds. Okay, it just doesn't happen. Matter of fact, I was very nervous about driving on the other side of the road. And I was actually getting really worried about it. So when we got to Sydney, I said to my wife, I said, you know what? You're going to laugh. I'm taking a driving lesson. And I hired a guy, cost me $100, and he gave me an hour. And the one thing I learned is I was driving about 10 kilometers over the limit, and he's screaming at me. I go, what are you worried about, man? It's 10 kilometers over the limit. And he goes, no, Mike, you don't understand. You can only drive the speed limit. You're not allowed to drive 1 kilometer. I'm going to get a ticket, So they really, speed is enforced, driving is enforced, all cameras. We saw very few police on the roadways. It was unbelievable. And the other thing that blew me away about Australia, I saw in 2 visits there, I saw one dirty truck. And that truck belonged to one of those amusement companies. And their trucks are always dirty and wrecked. But this thing, it was the only truck. I saw, Dean and I were in Canberra, the nation's capital. I saw these Kenworths coming out of a construction site that looked like they just came out of a truck wash.
Wow.
And then we met this guy. Now, you may know the name, John Kelly. He did a show called Australia Heavy Haul.
Yes, I did.
Wow, this guy is a character. He's unbelievable. And you should see the stuff he has. His collection, I never saw a collection like this in my life. These things are all like showroom. The one truck, which he calls Ned Kelly, who is a famous Australian bandit. This truck, he spent it's a Mac. It's either, is it a Superliner or an R700? I can't remember. But he spent $100,000 on the paint job.
Yes.
Unbelievable what he spent.
He's still, because I thought he went out of business when he bought like that $6 million self-driving trailer. Apparently that didn't go so well.
Yeah, he did go out of business, but he saved them. I don't know. He was selling the company, went bankrupt, and he's back at it somehow. So he somehow made it.
I love it.
Interesting guy. He's the real deal. He's a very generous guy. He took Dean and I out for the best, by far, the best Japanese meal I've ever had in my life. And I've been to Japan, and the sushi I had in Australia was even better. He's a real gentleman. So if any of our listeners ever get the chance to go to Australia, you have to look up John Kelly and see he's got a Kenworth dealer, or he's got an arrangement with Kenworth. It was so nice sitting in a brand new cab over, brand new Kenworth cab over, except I'm sitting on the wrong side of the truck. And I even got to drive a tractor trailer there. And it was humbling because I've been driving 13 speeds for over 50 years, same transmission, but when you go to do it with your left hand, it's a lot different, let me tell you.
In Barbados, they drive on the other side of the road. So when we go there, I don't drive there. I did once. I kept saying other side. But the last time I was going to rent a car, not this last time we went, but kind of one of the times we went. And the guy said, we booked the car late. He says, I can only get you a standard. And I thought, no problem. I can drive standard. I drive trucks all the time. He says, the shifter's on the other side. And right there, I said, so where's the pedal? And I just said, you know what? Forget it. It's gonna I was thinking of that though. That's amazing. Was there anything, if there's one thing that they're doing there that we should be doing here, what do you think that'd be in your opinion?
Preserving the culture.
Okay.
That's what we have lost here. And they have such a strong, people still stop and help each other.
Okay.
That's we've lost ours. I see drivers from the same company pass their own trucks broken down.
Yeah.
So, that's the new, that's how the world works today. We're just in a different world. Bruce, we're going to be running out of time because it's 7:57. My father-in-law always called the clock the enemy. The enemy is ticking away. Can you tell our listeners how to get hold of you?
Probably the best way is to just go to the leadpedalpodcast.com. It's probably the easiest way. And we've got links there for everything, to the radio station and everything. And if anybody's going to be at the Woodstock Truck Show, come to our tailgate party, May 31st. We'll be at the show. It's going to be fun for sure.
I'm going to try to make it to that party. I've got a couple of new trucks coming and I'm working on getting them ready. Okay. Taking one of my standards, my trucks are manual, through Chicago to go to the ATHS show in Wisconsin is a little bit daunting because my left knee is not good, but I think I can make it from here to Woodstock without any problem.
You mean to come up and get you? You let me know. That's thanks for the show, man. You guys have been awesome. Keep up the good work. I enjoy your show and what you guys.
You know what? I love having you on, and you are such a breath of fresh air for our industry. You're always positive. And you represent this industry in such a positive manner that on behalf of everybody in the industry that's trying to keep it together, we want to thank you because you just do such a great job. You're and we're on your side. We're we're trying to keep things the way they were, which you never can, but we certainly don't want this industry to keep imploding on itself. Right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to hang around with, Rico's not here tonight, but certainly with Bruce and with myself. We appreciate that. And if the good Lord's willing, we will be back here, same time, same place next week. As Rico always says, keep it between the mustard and the mayonnaise. As I always say, catch you on the flip-flop. And with that, Bruce, thank you so much. Good night. Good luck. Be safe, everybody. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me on, Rico, wherever you are.
God bless. Take care, my friend.